morning, everyone. Glad you're with us today for June's Power Hour. As we officially head into summer, we appreciate you taking some time to be with us, to be connected and informed. And before we dive in, I want to give a quick shout out to our leadership class of 2025. They graduate tonight, and we're really proud of them, celebrating a group of individuals who have invested in themselves and the community over the past year. I want to mention that they're the 40th class to graduate from this prestigious program sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce. And also give a shout out to the Sea Pines Resort for hosting graduation ceremonies for the leadership class tonight. Well, summer is here, and if you've been to the beach recently, you know that parking is always a topic that's top of mind for residents and for visitors alike. And that's why we're starting today with a quick update from the town on beach parking changes and beach renourishment as well. Beach renourishment is something that the town program manages every 8 to 10 years or so to combat coastal erosion and preserve the island's shoreline, to make sure that our beaches are safe, wide, and welcoming. And you also might be surprised to know that the beach renourishment doesn't come out of residents' pockets because of prudent planning by the Hilton Island Town Council probably about 35 years ago. They made the decision that the primary funding for that would come from visitors collected by accommodations that then the town would use to collect a beach preservation fee, which is a local-based tourism revenue fee. So today, here to walk us through all of that is Heather Woolwine. She's the Director of Communications for the town of Hilton Island. Heather has been with the town 10 short months now, I think, roughly, and is off to a stellar start, doing a great job keeping the community informed. And Heather, welcome and thanks for being with us this morning.
Thanks so much, Bill. And it's great to be back with everybody again. Always appreciate the invitation to share some information. So without further ado, let me share my screen here. All right. We should be in business. All right. Can everybody see that? Fantastic. Okay. So again, welcome to Power Hour, starting right off with beach renourishment. So, sorry, let me go back. Getting ahead of myself. These are just some fun, pretty pictures to give you guys an idea of what's ahead of us, right? So everything from the dredging out miles offshore, pumping that back, that sand, all that water, pumping it back onto the beach, and then giving you a little bit of a flavor there for before and after from our most recent renourishment in 2016. So again, just briefly, why is it so important? It's, as we know, right, from the news media, and we've already got some storm activity brewing in the Atlantic. So it helps with that storm surge barrier. It adding all this new sand encourages our beach plants to spread. It anchors the dunes, builds new dunes. And then, of course, we're saving all these upland habitats. So our maritime forests, protecting them from erosion. And then, you know, that protects all this great biodiversity that we love here on the island so much. Again, restoring the dune habitat, and then creating beach and dune habitat for endangered species. That, you know, the number one reason for them being endangered is that habitat loss. So these are our, you know, resting and nesting shorebirds, and then, of course, our nesting sea turtles. Fun fact, we've already worked with Sea Turtle Patrol to relocate several turtle nests that were deposited up in the Heel Port Royal area. So for all you turtle lovers out there, we are being very cognizant about where those nests are being placed, and working with Amber and Sea Turtle Patrol to make sure that they are relocated to a safer spot so we can hatch all those babies. And then, of course, you know, let's not underestimate or, you know, I don't think I can overstate the importance of the beaches to our community, right? Not just from a respite or a wellness or preserving the natural environment standpoint, but of course, from that economic standpoint, they're a huge asset. And to Bill's earlier point about the funding, right? That's why the town many years ago and continues to do so in terms of investing in this and doing so with, you know, without, you know, having to place too much tax burden on anybody here on the island. So some great updates related to project status and schedule. And this is, I won't go through every detail here. I'll just hit the high points on the phases because I think that's the thing that everybody most wants to know about. So our phase one, you might recall the last time I was here, we were looking at a June timeframe to launch the first phase, and that got pushed back just a wee bit. So we're, really looking at August as the kickoff. Mobilizing in July. So what does mobilization look like? Mobilization is Islanders Beach Park, setting up that temporary access for all the equipment to get delivered out to the beach, because that, of course, is the area where we're going to be starting renourishment. And again, just as a reminder, that was intentional, so that we could, access the busier sites, off of peak season. Peak beach season, tongue twister. That first phase is August through roughly November. It probably won't take quite that long, but again, like to give people sort of the best time frame that we can estimate. That'll be Pine Island, Fish Hall, Port Royal to Heel. Phase 2 will be November 2025. Again, marked all the way through May 26. We feel like we may be able to move faster than that, or our contractor feels they might be able to move faster than that. But again, just want to give you the general time frame. And that would be the Central Island and the South Beach structure. So starting north and then moving south. And then happy to relay that we just got the second permit to be able to work on those rock breakwater structures at Pine Island. While the scheduling is still TBD, you can anticipate that it would be sometime in that spring time frame, late spring, early summer time frame for next year. So along with the beach renourishment permit, there were some requirements that we had to fulfill from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And just last night, in fact, the council approved a second reading to approve this modification to our municipal code. And that's to restrict, we say dog activity because that's the most common animal to be out there. But truth be told, if you walk your cat, you will not be able to walk your cat in this particular part of the island either. So restrictions for all animals in this section that you see on the map. And just to give you reference, when you walk out to Fish Hall Beach Park and you use that town public access, if you look to your right, there's the pier or the walkway that comes out from the spa. So it's from that walkway and those rock structures over to the right of that, getting in front of historic Mitchellville Freedom Park. So the great thing about that is the town was able to negotiate. So originally, the bio opinion that we got from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service was to restrict the entire park. So that would have been, as you can see on the map, all the way up, Mitchellville Road, and then all the way over to the end of Freedom Park. So kudos to our assistant town manager, Sean Colin, and several others who worked really hard with our local legislative delegation and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to really hone in on the most important part of that area so that we could protect those shorebird species. So again, that goes into effect as of today. You'll start to see temporary signage going up today, with more permanent signage coming in the next several weeks. Beach parking, my favorite topic, as you can imagine. I get a few emails about this since the recent revisions. Just some reminders, and then I'll bring you up to speed with where we are right now. So anybody who lives on the island, and I believe, if you have a property ownership and you inhabit that property for a certain amount of time, I believe it's 8 months, you can get the parking permit and enjoy free parking at all town beach parks. Visitors are paying for parking at all locations except for Coligny Beach Park area. And that's not just the Coligny Beach Park area itself. That's also the town-owned property at the old Wild Wings and at Enchiladas. And so we've been seeing people avail themselves of the free parking that is there as well. Parking fees $3 an hour, Monday through Friday, max daily charge of $15 per vehicle. And then the flat daily rate of $20 per vehicle on Saturdays and Sundays. And full disclosure, that seems to have been sort of the biggest rub for most people so far. And then I'll give you an update in just a second, sort of what council's thinking in that regard. Parking fees enforced daily from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. during peak beach season, March 1st through September 7th. And Charlie knows this. I've said it to her a couple of times. One of the things I like to say is that sunrises and sunsets are still free because our beach parks are actually open from 6 a.m. until 10 p.m. So you have plenty of time to access all of the beach parks here on the island outside of sort of those peak hours if you do not want to pay the $3 per hour. Beach parking fees are now being enforced at Chaplain Community Park because it has that Burke's Beach access. And again, that's from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And that is a recent change because we allowed for free parking at that park ongoing while youth sports season this spring was in play. And also just a reminder that individuals with registered handicap placards and license plates, you can always park for free at all beach parks. That's a South Carolina state law. And there are actually some veterans license plates. So Purple Heart license plate holders, for example, they are also able to park for free. The best resource I can tell you in regards to that would be looking up on the South Carolina DMV website, and they let you know which veterans license plates qualify for free parking. I wish it was easy to say all of them, but that is not the case. So definitely check on that, if you have a veteran in your life or if you are a veteran yourself. Visitors pay online, so we're a fully digital system now. Cash payments are no longer accepted. And so I mentioned that town council is sort of taking a moment based upon the mayor's request to town staff and just all the feedback that everybody's been getting and to assess the revisions, think through some other possibilities. I think that I believe it's our next regular meeting where there's a possibility of considering some adjustments to the parking rates. If I can be fully transparent, I don't know that a Beaufort County resident beach parking pass is in the cards for this summer. I don't know that has the votes necessarily across council right now, but it is possible that there may be some rate changes coming. So just, as always, we encourage everybody to, stay engaged with us. Let us know your thoughts. By all means, please participate in our town council meetings. Let your voice be heard. And then I did not know if I would have this to bring to you guys. So surprise. I'm also going to bring you up to speed a little bit on where we are with the bridge. Yes, I know, the bridge. As we all know, there's been a whole lot of activity around this. 7 years in the making, just so much, right? But if we set all of that aside and we talk about the most recent sort of movement and what's happening, the county, who is basically the project home for this, right? The bridge is under their purview along with the South Carolina Department of Transportation, really the SCODOT and the county. So what's in the new plan? So we're looking at replacement of 2 eastbound bridges over Mackey and Skull Creek, construction of a 3-lane eastbound bridge that would not include a multi-use pathway, striping of the new bridge for 2 lanes with any necessary road tie-ins. So think Pinckney Island, for example, or the ferry access that's right there. Designing the bridge for temporary 4-lane use, and that would help accommodate any westbound bridge replacement. And then full direct access to Pinckney Island. You might recall in some of the conversations across council, that was something that was pointed out in some of the late stages as something that we really, really needed. And then new eastbound bridges so that they'll be built and designed so they avoid that aqueous water line so that we have no need to relocate it, or I should say they have no need to relocate it. Removal of the eastbound Mackey Bridge, the old bridge, construction of a Hog Island connector, road or bridge to access to Mariners Cove, Blue Heron, Hog Island, and then that would link back to US 278 at Windmill Harbor. Windmill Harbor traffic signal would be retained and improved. Mast arms will go in. They'll work on the timing of that signal, which I know is a popular topic as well. And previous estimates had gotten all the way up to around, $488 million. So the new project estimated cost is around $312 million, give or take. And that would be a mix of local, state, and regional sources. Mid-June is what they're looking at for the State Infrastructure Bank decision. And so where does that leave the town? And really, last night at our council meeting, our town manager and Mark Orlando and our assistant town manager, Sean Colin, talked with council about the need for them to formalize sort of their next steps and their thoughts, because at the end of the day, what we need to do is we still need to address the William Hilton Parkway corridor from Windmill Harbor all the way to Squire Pope, Stony neighborhood, Spanish Wells area. Those are our needs. That is within our purview to control and to address. And while we had hoped to be able to do that as part of the bridge project, we're gonna move forward with what we can, with a sense of urgency and responsiveness to the community. So I will stop there and kick it back to you, Bill, for any questions anybody might have.
All right, thank you for that comprehensive update on so many important topics that you and the town are involved in. And we do have several questions that have come in, and you and your PR and communications expertise have answered several of those already, of questions that have come in. So well done with that. The first one, Heather, is coming from Rick, and Rick is asking, how much will Hilton Head Island residents pay for a parking permit?
I'm sorry, Bill, say that one more time.
Rick is asking, how much will Hilton Head Island residents pay for a parking permit?
Hilton Head Island residents will not pay for a parking permit. That is going to remain free. One of the things they were considering was whether or not to allow Beaufort County residents, so our Bluffton neighbors, and other folks across the county, frankly, would we allow them to purchase sort of what I would call maybe a county pass? There's examples of that, in other municipalities. And I don't know that a dollar amount was necessarily landed on. I'd heard somewhere between $50 and $100, depending upon the person I would be talking to at the time. But that hasn't made it out of committee. So our Community Services Public Safety Committee has not recommended that a county pass for Beaufort County folks be considered at this time. And so that'll be addressed at an upcoming regular town council meeting. Good question.
All right, thank you. And Jennifer is asking the next question. And Jennifer is asking, will dogs be banned from the entire beach or just portions of it?
So I'm so glad you asked this question, Jennifer, because I know the rumor mill has been churning high on this. The impact for the beach renourishment and that map that I showed you guys, that is just Fish Hall Beach and a very, very small component of Fish Hall Beach. So again, when you walk out there, public access, go to the left, you can go to the right all the way up to where the signage will be with your dogs. As for the other beaches, our regular restrictions are in place. So just a reminder there that during peak beach season, so from Memorial Day to Labor Day, we actually don't allow dogs on the beach from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's due to a lot of people being on the beach. But if you think about it, it's also really for the safety of the animals, because it does get so hot during that time of day. It's the best thing for them. So those restrictions are in place. And then we go back to, dogs being fully allowed any time of day while the parks are open once we close out Labor Day.
All right, thank you. Next question is coming from Patrick. And Patrick is asking, what is the town planning on doing to address the bottleneck from the bridge to the Pope intersection?
So that is a great question also. No, top of mind for everybody, right? If you're trying to turn on left from Spanish Wells, or there's a lot of different sort of ingress and egress issues, right, if you will, around that intersection and that whole corridor. And that is exactly what the town is going to be working on over this summer. So we're going to be there's the great thing about sort of all of the stuff, if you will, around the bridge, is that the town has been able to do some versions of corridor master planning. And what would that look like? And so we're going to be able to take those things, sort of right size them for where we are now, look at funding sources. I can tell you that top of mind is definitely going to be working with Senator Davis to find some state dollars. There's also some conversation around working with some other municipalities who have different sections, I guess, if you will, of the William Hilton Parkway, of I-95, sort of this, it all works together, right? And so is there money that we can all put in and go for together that helps each municipality, from the state level? So they're going to be exploring that in the coming months. I know there's been a lot of conversation about syncing the lights and doing some more traffic studies around that. So definitely more to come. I do think we'll probably feel the pinch a little bit more right now before we start it to, start feeling it to get better, or start feeling it better. But, a lot of that has to do with just a peak beach season. So we definitely get the sense of urgency. We're there. We have a lot of our own workforce that has to commute on and off the island. So we're aware of the issues and just gonna really start, putting that pen to paper and plugging away.
Thank you. Todd is asking, is it possible to eliminate the Windmill Harbor traffic signal and to tie their east and west access into 278 via the same structure as they used for Pinckney Island?
So something I just learned recently, and I'm glad you asked this question. The Windmill Harbor light is actually not a town light, so we don't have control over it per se. My understanding is that is an SCDOT. It's either SCODOT or county who has that light. And so that, when I mentioned sort of some of those bridge updates or what's in the new plan, the county will be addressing that. How that's going to actually look and tie in will depend upon the acceptance or acceptance with conditions from the state infrastructure bank related to their plan, and whether or not SCDOT also agrees with that in terms of construction and how it works. So still a little bit to be determined. Believe me, I wish we had more control over that light, but we do not. So we're gonna do our best to make our voice heard. You can certainly count on council and our town leadership, our staff leadership, to do that and advocate for changes that we think will be appropriate and best for the community.
Heather, the questions continue to come in. We have time for two more. And
okay.
The next question is coming from Rob, and Rob is asking, where do Hilton Head Island property owners go to get their free beach parking pass?
A great question again. These are wonderful. I appreciate it, you guys. So the best thing to do is to go to our Hilton Head Island SC.gov website. And if you, once you get there, if you go to the menu at the top, you'll see some drop downs come down on the business side, and you can access, you'll see beach parking and parking permits and a variety of things. So once you click there, you go right into our webpage, and there's an online portal. You'll need two pieces of information when you go to apply. So one, you'll need your vehicle registration, and you will also need your property tax bill. So, or if you rent on the island, you also again are eligible if you can show us that rental agreement that indicates that you're a full-time resident. And then you plug those in. There's no more stickers, no more of that. It's all done by your license plate now. You can get 2 passes per household, so 2 vehicles per household. And once you put all that in online, you'll get a confirmation email back that says you're ready to go. And I recently did it for another vehicle in my household, and I actually had it returned same day. So the process is very, very quick.
All right, thank you. Last question is coming from Lisa, and Lisa is asking, can anyone park at the old Enchiladas parking lot?
Yes, you can. That was the easiest one.
Heather, you've been a wealth of information as always, and thank you for being with us today and answering so many questions and providing such great, accurate, and timely information.
Happy to do it. Thanks for having me, Bill.
All right, Heather Woolwine with the town of Hilton Head Island. Next up is someone who's no stranger to Power Hour and always brings clarity on the state level to issues really that matter the most. State Representative Weston Newton recently wrapped up this year's legislative session in Columbia, where several very important pieces of legislation, including liquor liability reform, which many of our business community have been watching closely. He's here to share what passed, what didn't, and what's ahead for our region and the state. Weston, it's always good to see you, and it's best to see you when you're in Bluffton or Hilton Head Island. But we're glad when you're in Columbia as well.
Well, good morning, Bill, and appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. Always a pleasure to address folks and share a little bit about what's happening in Columbia or what happened this year and sort of what may be next. And obviously enjoy taking questions. You know, from my perspective, while there's a whole litany of things that we could talk about, you know, I'm chairman of the Judiciary Committee. So roughly 45% of all legislation filed in the House comes to Judiciary Committee. And it's a wide variety of topics. You know, this year, some of the public safety highlights were child abuse by AI. You know, that's morphed images or AI generated pictures of individuals, minors engaged in obscene acts. We also passed a revenge porn bill. We passed for the first time in South Carolina, an organized retail crime, think smash and grab law, death by fentanyl. So, you know, the Judiciary Committee always has a good bit of public safety activity in terms of our criminal laws that go on. The Hands-Free Act came through Judiciary, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But probably one of the most significant things, and clearly one of the things that will have such a direct impact on many of our small businesses throughout South Carolina, but, you know, in the tourism industry in particular, is, as you mentioned, the tort reform and liquor liability. And, you know, just to set the backdrop, in 2017, the South Carolina General Assembly required $1 million minimum policy if you sold alcohol. And that was in response to a set of tragic circumstances where somebody was overserved. It was no secret. The facts were quite egregious in the manner in which they were overserved. They went out, injured someone fairly significantly. It was a off-duty trooper who then became paralyzed, and there was minimum coverage on the driver of the vehicle, $25,000, to be there to address the victim's needs. The General Assembly passed a law that said $1 million worth of coverage. Well, what's happened since then, and more significantly in the last 3 or 4 years, is the insurance premiums in South Carolina have skyrocketed. And I mean, 800% increases. We heard testimony from bars and restaurants and VFW clubs all over the state, Greenville, Charleston, Hilton Head, Columbia, about businesses, quite frankly, that were going out of business, businesses that were eliminating management positions and consolidating management because they had to come up with the additional funds to cover the insurance premiums. So 2 years ago, the House addressed this issue, had an ad hoc committee, passed legislation specifically targeted toward the liquor liability issues, and it went to the Senate. It didn't pass the Senate. We came back this year. The House again took a rifle approach at the liquor liability issue to address the skyrocketing insurance premiums, to address some of the concerns about disproportionate liability, and sent it to the Senate. At the same time, the Senate passed what was known as S-244, which was a very comprehensive tort reform package. The House bill could best be described as a rifle approach with other rifle shots in the mix to be debated. The Senate spent 11 weeks and sent us at the start of April a omnibus bill that addressed a whole host of issues, from both liquor liability and tort reform, statute of repose in the construction industry, limits on automobile coverage, seatbelt law changes. Ultimately, we didn't have 11 legislative days left to deal with that. But what we did do is we sat down with the leadership in the Senate and said, we cannot allow our bars and restaurants to be held hostage to solving some of these other issues or debating these other public policy issues. These folks are struggling. These folks are going out of business, and they need our help now. And, you know, one of the number one things that we heard in the 2 years of testimony that the House has taken was that the reason these premiums were as high as they were was because of language in the law that provided liability in the liquor context was joint and several, meaning that you could be held 100% liable for the amount of the damages, even though you weren't 100% at fault. And so in trying to figure out how to address that, in working with the Senate, we took what we had passed, what the Senate had passed, and what the Senate said that they had to have to approve some liquor liability tort reform this year. And we ended up addressing joint and several liability in the broader context. That was clearly an issue that needed to be done, that was on the list of House measures to address, but not at this time, and combined that with the liquor liability. So the good actors get an ability to mitigate or reduce their premiums from the $1 million amount. Server training is now going to be required, which lowers the amount. If you stay open after midnight, you're going to have scanners to make sure that the IDs are real. Again, another discount in the insurance. We addressed a question that for those folks in the close to the issue that may have heard about the Tiffany B. Smith problem, which was a Supreme Court case ruling in the context of our joint and several liability statute in South Carolina that was interpreted by our court to only put named parties on a jury verdict form. And while we're getting a little bit into the weeds, we fixed that problem by saying all parties go on the jury verdict form. We'll eliminate joint and several liability in the liquor context. We'll eliminate joint and several liability as it relates to gross negligence, and only leave that modified joint and several in the worst cases of deliberate activities or intentional activities that occur, willful, wanton, that sort of thing. And so, you know, quite frankly, we've addressed the precise issue that the insurance companies have identified as the driver of the skyrocketing insurance premiums. Now, we don't regulate liquor liability insurance in South Carolina, so it's not an admitted carriers, and we don't talk about at the Department of Insurance what the margins on the policies or profits that can be made. It's just not the type of regulatory structure that we have. But obviously, the laws that expose bars and restaurants to liability, or more to the point that expose the insurance companies to liability, have been addressed. Our goal was not to help the insurance companies make more money. Our goal was to drive down insurance premiums. And so while we modified the liability exposure, at the same time, we included language directing that the Department of Insurance not only to monitor the carriers in South Carolina, to monitor what's happening with premiums and report back on a regular basis to the General Assembly, but also that these akin to safe driver discounts must be recognized in insurance policies in the liquor liability context. So, I am pleased. By no stretch of the imagination is this the end of discussion of liquor liability, but it is a great first step. And quite frankly, I've described this when the governor's bill signing. It's the fulfillment of a promise. We listened to our small businesses and the problems that they were experiencing, and told them, by and large, we're going to do something for you, and we're going to make sure that we don't leave Columbia this year without doing it. In fact, the bill that the House passed in March was unanimously approved by everybody in the body. So, I appreciate the hard work and the last few weeks of session by the full Judiciary Committee, also by the House of Representatives in moving it forward. And I think that upon reflection, that will be recognized as one of the most significant accomplishments that took place in Columbia this year. Certainly not intended to take away from any of the other. Bill Herb Kurzman's LCI committee, Chairman Herb Kurzman, passed the energy bill that we all talked about 6 months ago as being necessary to make sure that we were generating enough power in South Carolina to address the growth and the people that are here. That helps pave the way to a joint Santee Cooper and Dominion project gas plant in Canadas, and encourages an all of the above strategy in South Carolina. The hands-free law that we talked about. Many of our neighbors, certainly South Carolina has been one of the outliers in not banning or not having a hands-free law. That law now goes into effect in September. There'll be a 6-month grace period because the statistics do show that having your hands on a phone and engaged in those activities increase the instance of distracted driving and injury and automobile accidents. We have tried this in years past in the House. There was fairly significant opposition. This year in addressing the bill, we made sure that it didn't criminalize negligence, which is always a concern that, think somebody that's grown up for the last 15 years and being able to use their phone sort of by reflex reaches over and grabs it, and as a result causes an accident with injury. We don't want that to be somebody to go serve jail time for that. There obviously are appropriate monetary penalties like there are with other moving violations and point violations against the driver's license. But that's a great step forward, and I think we'll do a lot of things to helping protect the public. Privacy is protected, no custodial arrest. The police can't search your phone to see if you were on it. They have to actually observe you being on it to write a ticket. One thing that I was disappointed that didn't make it in the liquor liability package, the House recognized that one of the most important things in this arena, and remember the backdrop in South Carolina is we're number 3 in the country in per capita DUI fatalities. So at the same time, while we are addressing the skyrocketing insurance premiums that were crippling our businesses, we needed to send a strong message. We needed to also include components where the real fault lies with DUI accidents. And that's with the folks that drink and get behind the wheel of a car. And so while the House version did include stiffening of the DUI penalties in South Carolina, the Senate, not dissimilar from the House, said probably a great idea. We have not had a chance to deliberate that while we were deliberating the bigger tort reform package. We'll get to that next year. So I'm heartened to know the commitment from the Senate that they do intend to address some of the challenges with the enforcement of our DUI laws in South Carolina next year. Bill, lots of other things that we could talk about. There's a new golf cart law. A lot of questions in the last couple of weeks. Does it require seatbelts when golf carts are on private property? The answer to that is no. It just sort of clarifies what local government can do in terms of authorizing golf carts to be driven on certain streets and roads in South Carolina. And we passed a revenge porn bill. In addition to the child abuse and AI morphed images I mentioned earlier, this revenge porn is just what you can think of. People taking images without consent and then putting those out into the cyber world. Certainly if the images were taken without consent and put out there, then that's now a crime as well. So lots of good things that went on in Columbia. On the budget standpoint, there's been much discussion about community member investment projects were put on hold for this year. That's generally the one-time non-recurring funds that is identified as being available, and their members put in requests for member projects. TCL has been the recipient of that over the year. Various Mitchellville on Hilton Head, obviously the museum on Hilton Head. I think Honeyhorn has probably been the beneficiary of those community investment projects in the past. None of those took place this year, but we still made some significant inroads in terms of repatriating state money back to this part of South Carolina. We got the last installment, if you will, or effectively money needed to complete the convocation center at USCB. That was $9.2 million that we were able to obtain for that. A couple of $1 million more toward the Hilton Head Island Airport. Making sure that we got resource officers in every one of the schools. There were a couple left in Beaufort that we had not gotten the state funding for, and increases in the formulas for local government fund. Beaufort County is going to get about another $500,000, bringing their number up to about $11.3 million. So all in a good session. Always a lot to be done. In the fall, we're going to take up medical malpractice. Tort reform, we're going to take up statute of repose. Again, that's in the construction defect arena. Seatbelts, motorist automobile coverage limits, and some of the other issues that the Senate included in their omnibus bill. With that, let's see if there are questions that folks might be interested in that I can share, and appreciate the time.
All right, Weston, thank you for that comprehensive update. And there are several questions that have come in. The first one's coming from Margaret, and she's asking if you can please clarify the status of the South Carolina hate crime bill.
Margaret, there are bills pending in both the House and the Senate. You may be aware. I chaired an ad hoc committee in the House a couple of years ago. I authored the bill with Wendell Gilliard from Charleston, identified him as the primary sponsor. That bill has passed the House on at least 2 occasions. It has gone to the Senate, where it has not been able to receive a favorable report or approval in the Senate. There is that same legislation has still been filed in the House. It has not passed the House this year. Quite frankly, it has not come up for a hearing in the House this year. Having sent it to the Senate twice, we have encouraged our Senate colleagues to take that measure up and to bring it over to the House.
All right, thank you. The next question is coming from Linda, and Linda is asking, how is the legislature working to improve our power grid, especially with AI?
Linda, I don't know that I can tell you how AI is being used to address the power grid. I can tell you that, when we went back into session this year, one of the priorities identified in the House and certainly the Senate was 2 years ago at Christmas. We were just moments away from rolling blackouts in South Carolina because of the amount of power that was being consumed. As a consequence, certainly a renewed interest in the Santee Cooper nuclear facility that got shuttered a few years ago, but also the power bill that I mentioned that came out of the Labor, Commerce, and Industry was to modernize and to streamline the permitting process. Jeff Bradley from Hilton has been deeply involved with the AI and his regulatory committee in the House. I got to imagine that AI is being utilized. Of course, while the state's involved in Santee Cooper, most of the power companies in South Carolina are investor-owned utilities or publicly traded companies. So I don't know that I have a direct answer for you other than what we're trying to do is make sure that the regulatory environment in South Carolina does not create an obstacle to the creation of new power generation.
Thank you. Next question is coming from Liz, and Liz is asking, when will businesses feel the positive impact of the new liquor liability law?
That's interesting. Obviously, it depends on the renewals of insurance policies. The law goes into effect as of January 1, because obviously the scanners that have to be obtained, the required server training that has to be in place for all servers at bars and restaurants. All of those measures need to be implemented, but as policies begin to renew, and the renewals taking place after January 1 of next year, the difference in the premiums amount that will be required at that point in time. Again, remember, we started at $1 million. There are multiple ways to get that number down to 500,000 and ultimately and 300,000 in the nonprofit context. So, what I would tell you is that I think the inertia for that should begin in the very near term, but as insurance policies renew with coverage periods that go out past January 1, we ought to begin to see those changes. At least that's what we hope. One of the components that is sort of has been missing in this tort reform discussion overall was that we took testimony as it relates to liquor liability insurance and why the premiums were so high in the ad hoc committee that Judiciary set up. And the testimony, was, again, that phrase with regard to joint and several liability regarding the sale, use, or possession of alcohol in South Carolina law that was identified. This is why premiums are so high. And as well as the $1 million limit, but this is the point of the spear. What we don't know is why insurance premiums have skyrocketed across other types of insurance. And Chairman Herb Kurzman's committee, one of the things they're doing is they have set up an ad hoc committee with subpoena power, and they in the offseason intend to bring in the insurance companies to press them on these issues. Why do homeowners premiums, why are they going up so high? Why are other types of liability insurance going up so high? What's the root cause of the skyrocketing premiums across the board? And so I look forward to Mr. Herb Kurzman's committee doing that work, and where that leads us in what other reform and activities we need to take place. But my message is we responded to the call of why the insurance companies said premiums were so high. It's now we expect premiums to come down, and if they don't, there'll be more to come.
All right, the questions continue to come in, but unfortunately we only have time for one more question, Weston, and this one's coming in from Frank, and Frank is asking about if golf carts on public roads are required to have a driver's license to operate And also, are seat belts required?
Yeah, seatbelts are required for minors, driver's license, and the insurance and registration are required for public roads. Yes, sir.
Weston, thank you. Thank you for your continued commitment and service. We appreciate your leadership in Columbia and at home as well. And thank you for being with us today. It's always great to see you.
Good to see you, Bill. Thanks very much. Y'all have a great day.
All right, State Representative Weston Newton with the great comments for us. And we'll move on today, and closing us out is a person whose work is preserving and sharing a story that's not only part of our Lowcountry heritage, but also a part of American history. Lola Campbell is the chair of the board for Mitchellville Freedom Park, the site of the first self-governed town of formerly enslaved people in the United States. She also serves on the board of the Hilton Head Island Bluffton Chamber of Commerce and chairs our Business Workforce Coalition, helping to shape the future of our regional economy. She's here this morning to talk a little bit about their upcoming Juneteenth celebration and the exciting momentum moving ahead at the Mitchellville Preservation Park and how Mitchellville continues to honor that Gullah heritage. I'll mention before we hear from Lola that we recently hosted some outstanding national media in the Lowcountry to tell the Gullah story, and they were so impressed by what's happening with Mitchellville and with the new Gullah Center coming to Bluffton as well. So Lola, welcome. We're delighted to see you today, and thank you for being with us.
Good morning, Bill, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me this morning and having Mitchellville here to just present to you about Juneteenth and our celebration. We're coming up on our 11th annual celebration of Juneteenth. So it's been amazing. I thought that I would just, for those who may not know, what Juneteenth is. I know we hear it all the time, but everyone doesn't always know. I thought I'd just share just a quick background on Juneteenth and then let you know what's coming up at the park for Juneteenth. So I will go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see. All right. So Juneteenth, it's June 19th, 1865. For those who don't know, what is Juneteenth? It's June plus the 19th combined. So that's where we got the name for Juneteenth from. On June 19th, 1865, about 2,000 Union troops arrived in Galveston Bay, Texas, and freed enslaved African Americans there. This came about 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was actually signed. And so, word took a little while to get over to Galveston. So of course the Army announced that more than 250,000 enslaved Black people in the state were free by executive decree, and this day became known as Juneteenth. And we also refer to it as our country's second Independence Day. This is just a quote from Union General Gordon Granger, who was the one to actually arrive at Galveston and give the news of freedom for all. This is a picture of an Emancipation Day celebration on June 19th in 1900, which was held in Austin. The first Juneteenth celebration was actually in 1866, the year after Juneteenth happened. So celebrations like then, today, like what we do at Mitchellville, just really recognize the ongoing fight for the human rights and equality, and are commemorated through family cookouts, huge festivals like we do at Mitchellville, faith services, things like that. Also, I think, I cannot leave out that Juneteenth was established as a federal holiday in 2021. Finally, really, the celebrations that have been happening from 1865 forward, there were ways to try to get that get that holiday recognized. And so finally in 2021, it was recognized federally, and that's great. Just to give you a few things that are going on in the park for Juneteenth, we usually have days of celebration here. So starting on June 12th, we have a special bird watching experience in the park. It's free admission. That's done in collaboration with the Audubon Society. There are lots of birds in the park to see, and interesting ones. And then also that Thursday night, June 12th, is one of my favorite activities or events that we do, and it's a sleepover experience in the park, done with Joe McGill, who goes around the country and hosts these sleepovers in places where slaves have actually lived at some point. There's a awesome discussion that happens. There's dinner, and then you can either pitch a tent or you can rent a tent from the Mitchellville office. We on June 13th, the Friday, we have a Children's Day. This was first done last year, and it was a really well attended event, and children came out and had a lot of fun. We have some archaeological digs and artifact discovery activities, lots of hands-on exhibits, tours through the park. They're learning all about Mitchellville and the history of Juneteenth. And then that Friday night, we also have a drum circle celebration. Drum circles are historically a way that we pay homage to our ancestors. There will be food trucks and vendors at the drum circle event, but you can also feel free to bring your drum along and participate and get in the circle, and make some great music. That's always a fun event. And then Saturday, June 14th, is our big event. That's our 11th annual festival. There will be food trucks. There will be vendors. And the main attraction is Leela James this year. She just came out with a hit, so we are very excited to have her in the park, and hope that we will have many people there to hear the music, eat some food, and even get out and dance a little. On Juneteenth, actual day, which is Thursday, June 19th this year, we will have a 5K run and walk in Mitchellville, and also a litter sweep that is happening from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. So the festivities don't stop, although we're having our events the week before actual Juneteenth. We did want to have some type of event on the actual June 19th, and so you can come out and participate in the run walk. Okay, let me end that and stop sharing. Okay, so hopefully that will help people to know the significance of Juneteenth. One thing that I did not mention, I'd love to mention, is that there's a great significance of Mitchellville in this story of freedom and Juneteenth. Mitchellville was actually settled around October or November of 1862. So if you think about it, the Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1863. Juneteenth happened in 1865. It's, I love to be able to claim that here on Hilton Head at Mitchellville, we really had the first freedom. It's where freedom began. So the formerly enslaved people who inhabited Mitchellville were freed before most or all other enslaved people in America. So I'll stop there. I know there's only like 2 more minutes, so if anyone has any questions, I'd love to entertain that.
Thank you, Lola. Very, very helpful and informative. There are a couple of questions. Yes, thank you. The first one's coming from Ronnie, and Ronnie is asking, what's happening with the archaeology dig on the property?
Well, Ronnie, thanks for that question. We continue to have archaeological digs happening out there. On this past Saturday, we had a public archaeological dig where, you know, people could come out to the park and actually dig with Katie Sieber, our archaeologist. As we have projects that we are working on, Katie pretty much focuses on that area to dig. Our last big dig just finished up maybe about a month ago. We were digging. If you've been to the park, once you turn into the park, immediately to the right, there is an area where we will be hopefully having a groundbreaking for our 4,000 square foot archaeological research facility this summer. And Katie spent months digging in that area to uncover, you know, anything, you know, that we needed to in order to be able to move forward with the project. She did find some interesting items. I know off the top of my head, she found an actual nail bone that was would have been used to, you know, to make sweetgrass baskets, which is very interesting. She finds, you know, she has found charcoal, which is basically a pencil that would have been used for school children. So we continue to dig and are always open to sharing the knowledge and items that we find out there. So you know, through tours or connecting with our office, you can find out more about it.
All right, the next question is coming from Patricia, and Patricia is asking, when do you expect to break ground on the Mitchellville Interpretive Center?
Wow, that is the 10,000 or $1 million question. Well, Patricia, we would love to break ground any day, but we are still actually raising the funds for that building. We have raised some of them for some of the infrastructure to start on some of the infrastructure for that building, but groundbreaking is a ways away. We're going to first tackle this archaeological facility, but you know, I can tell you personally, I hope that in the next 3 years that, you know, being very generous in time, that we can break ground on that building. If you have any information on anyone who would love to donate a huge amount to be able to break ground on that building, please contact me personally, Patricia.
Thank you. 2 more questions. Next one's from Stephen, and Stephen's asking, what's the significance of the ghost structures?
Oh, great. Oh, that's an awesome question. So the ghosted structures actually represent the dimensions of the homes that would have originally been in Mitchellville. And through archaeology, we know that where those ghosted structures are placed is actually where homes would have been. And why do we know that? Because Katie found things that would have been used in kitchens or the outdoor kitchens, or things that would have been used for gardening, as every person had a garden behind their home. So yeah, that's the significance.
Last question from Stella, and she's asking if there are still plans to bring over a boulder from Sierra Leone.
Stella, great question. There are still plans to bring that boulder over from Sierra Leone. We would love to place that in what would be known as our Freedom Plaza area of our master plan. We are still working on that. There are just a lot of logistics or issues with logistics around getting a boulder over from Sierra Leone, but we have been continuously in the works with talking with people over in Sierra Leone, the government there, and have a a specified task force of community leaders, as well as a mod, of course, working on that. So let's keep our fingers crossed that we can get it over here.
All right, Lola, thank you. And you can find Lola at her store, Benya Boutique, Benya HHI, also a website, so you can check her out. And Lola, I want to thank you for your leadership with the Mitchellville board, as well as the volunteers, other board members, and the mod board, as you had mentioned, who are doing such spectacular work and significant, meaningful things for not only Hilton Head Island, but for the rest of the country as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Bill. We love to be here doing the good work that we need to do. So thanks.
Indeed, keep up the good work. Before we close, a quick reminder, our Chamber Business Golf Classic is Friday the 13th, so a week from this coming Friday, and we still have a few tee times remaining, so if you'd like to get out and have some fun, play around in golf with some other business folks, we'd love to have you. And you can do that by looking at our website, Hilton Head Island BlufftonChamber.org, or reaching out to Laura Alice Henderson here at the Chamber. As we close, as we also heading into summer, I wanted to take a minute to recognize our incredible students in our region. To all those recent graduates and the parents of those recent graduates, congratulations. And whether you're off to college, starting a new job, or figuring out what your next step is going to be, we're very, very proud of you, and our region is better because of your energy, your ideas, and your future. So everyone, have a great rest of your week. Thank you for tuning in to Power Hour, and we look forward to seeing you next time.